Hello and welcome back to Old Frames Gaming. I'm your host BK, and I'm bringing you round two from our May meetup at Dragon's Den, which is going to feature myself on LionDibBolt versus Colin on a mono black rack deck. Let's take a look at the decks. And here we have Colin's mono black rack deck, which is going to have a few efficient creatures like Royal Assassin to help us control the board some. Black Knight, which is 2/2 first striking and protection from white to get around annoying things like Swords to Plowshares. Hypnotic Spectre, which is going to be a 2/2 flyer, and we're going to get a random card discarded every time that guy connects with their opponent. He's got a Mind Twist in there, as well as 4 Hymn to Thorax in order to help rip apart opponents' hands. And some board control elements like Drain Life, which can be used to either finish off a creature or a player. Terror and a couple of Paralyzes. And then to round things out, we've got Strip Mine for some of those troublesome lands like Library of Alexandria, or maybe to take an opponent off a color, as well as some fast mana like Dark Ritual. So let's take a look at the sideboard. And here we have Colin's sideboard. And you'll notice here that he has added a pair of Terrors, another Drain Life, and another Paralyze to complement those things found in the main deck. And we've also added one more Royal Assassin for those creature-heavy builds that we run into once in a while. We find Pestilence here, which is not only going to help us control the board some, but it's also going to deal some direct damage to our opponent. Meek Stone for those decks that like to power out some huge creature right off the bat. We've got Gloom in order to help protect us against some of those white decks, some of those white weenie decks out there. Have a habit of throwing a lot of creatures on the board real quick and then pumping them with things like Crusade. Well, this is going to help us stop that, as well as Swords to Plowshares on our own stuff. To finish things up, we've got a couple of Greeds to help us maintain some of that card draw that we don't get because we're not in blue, so we can't play Brain Geyser or Ancestral Recall. And then a Singleton Fear, which I think is a pretty neat card, and that one's autographed, so that's even cooler. So with that, let's go on to take a look at my deck, LionDibBolt. Alright, so the deck I played on the night was LionDibBolt, which is mostly a red, white, and blue deck with just a small splash of black for Mind Twist and Demonic Tutor. You'll see here play sets of Savannah Lines, Lightning Bolt, Serendib Efreet, and Chain Lightning, as well as a full suite of Power 9, a Wheel of Fortune to pair up with Time Twister in order to refill our hand, Balance in case things get way out of control, and then some board control elements like Counterspell, Disenchant, which I played as both as 3 ofs, and a Divine Offering. Alright, so here's the sideboard that I brought with me for the night. We started off with a Singleton Nevinyrral's Disc as a panic button of sorts, red and blue Elemental Blast for those respective blue and red decks that you run into once in a while. I brought a Hurkyl's Recall and a pair of Shatters to kind of supplement the Disenchant and the Divine Offering in the main deck for the artifact heavy builds or the robot builds that we run into from time to time. The Singleton Karma I brought because mono black is a popular choice, and I thought as a one of it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have. And then to finish things off, the 3 Swords to Plowshares and the Singleton Fireball to add to the main deck burn package and board control elements that we have going on to round things out. That finishes up the sideboard and the deck text. Let's jump on into game 1. Alright, moving into game 1 of round 2. Colin is going to be on the right hand side of your screen, and I am going to be on the left. We're going to roll the wrong pair of dice in order to try and determine who's going to go first in this contest. I wind up rolling a 5. Colin takes control of the dice. He rolls more than 5, so he gets to choose, and Colin's going to opt to play in this game. So we're going to continue to shuffle up here and then take a look at our first 7 and see whether or not we're going to keep that. Colin finishes up and presents for a cut. So I'm going to shuffle up a little bit more here and then present momentarily. And we're going to see what our first 7 looks like. Alright, let's start counting the cards as we draw, because I'm bad at doing this. Want to make sure that we don't draw too many or too few. Colin and myself are going to take a good long look at this and give it a think, decide whether or not we want to keep it, if it's worth playing or not. Looks like you can see an Order of the Ebon Hand and a Terror and something else there in Colin's hands. But he decides it's probably not worth the keep, so he's going to throw it back and opt to go for 6 and see what happens. I believe I kept my opening 7. The openers on a LionDibBolt are typically pretty good. A lot of the stuff is lower casting cost, so most hands are worth keeping. Colin's going to continue to shuffle up here. And he presents for a cut. Alright, so let's see if our 6 looks better than our opening 7. Well, I did see, I did get a peek at a Dark Ritual there, so we've at least got some fast mana available to us. So this hand is probably going to be keepable. There's a rack in his hand. That card can be problematic. Alright, so it looks like our 6 is suitable. So Colin is going to open up on a Swamp, followed by a Mox Jet. It's a pretty good opening for Colin here. Lots and lots of things we can do with that. Alright, so Dark Rituals. So now we got 3 black mana available to us, and to a Hypnotic Spectre. That's a pretty classic play. And even going to add a rack on the end of it. How about that? So he's going to pass the turn. I'm going to take a draw and see what we got going on here. So we're going to open up on a Plateau. And we're going to Chain Lightning that Hypnotic Spectre. Get that thing on out of here. I'm not trying to discard any cards this game. Colin takes his draw after getting the turn back. We're sitting on 2 cards, it looks like. Alright, 2 mana for him to Turak. So he's going to get 2 cards at random. I have 6, so that's going to take me down to 4. So he gets a Counterspell and a Volcanic Island out of my hand. That's rough. But that's alright. I think we're gonna be okay. So Colin passes the turn back. I'll play a City of Brass. And the glare is there, but I believe that's a Mox Emerald that I played out on the field. It's just hard to see. And I'll pass the turn back over to Colin. He's giving it a think, but he decides to pass the turn back to me. So we take a draw. We got some options available to us, it looks like. I think I see a Counterspell there. So we're going to play Library of Alexandria. We're going to tap 3 mana, take our damage off City of Brass. And I said, you know what? Let's just Wheel of Fortune. Let's just both chuck our hands and draw 7 new cards, because this is not going to get us there. So let's take a fresh 7. And there looks like a Serendib Ifrit. So that's a pretty good hand. That worked out okay. I'll pass the turn back over to Colin. And he's going to play an Urborg, which is a pretty cool land, I believe, out of Legends. There was a cycle of these, and they were all pretty interesting. Albeit not all good, but they were interesting. So he's going to Dark Ritual into a Disrupting Scepter so that he's got a constant source of discard. And then he's going to play a Hymn to Torak and get another 2 cards at random out of my hand. So let's see what he takes this time. Alright, we're going to get the Serendib Ifrit that I wished he hadn't. And then he's going to get a Tundra. Alright, so tapped out. Colin passes the turn back over to us. We're going to untap and take a look. See what we got here. So another City of Brass. I have to admit, the mana base on this deck is pretty painful. However, it's pretty well necessary. So I go to 18. We're going to play an Ancestral Recall and draw 3 cards targeting ourselves. So we refilled our hand. So there's a Black Lotus. All we need to do at this point is just land something and just make it stick. And Colin's still at 20 life, so I mean there's a good ways to go here. My lands are killing me faster than Colin is. So we're going to use that Lotus and we're going to play a LionDibBolt. And we're going to also play a Savannah Lion. So now we've got a maximum of 5 damage as it stands every turn, so long as he doesn't play a blocker. Alright, I pass the turn back over to Colin and he draws. Looks like he's got a Drain Life there in hand, and that could be awful. So now we have a Mishra's Factory on board. So he can pay 1 to animate that to turn it into a 2/2 creature, which would successfully block Savannah Lions, although both would be gone in the process. Colin passes the turn back over. I'll take 1 damage off of my Efreet and draw my card for the turn. So we're coming on in. No fear on that factory. So Colin takes the 5. I'll play a Volcanic Island. I'll think it over a little bit. Looks like we're going to pay 1 life. Oh, we're going to Demonic Tutor for our favorite card in the deck. So I'm going to go to 16 in the process off that City of Brass. We're going to go looking to see what we got. What's it going to be? What's it going to be? I spent a lot of time in the tank on this one because I don't remember. I do remember it was something very important at the time, though. Alright, I'm going to shuffle up and present back to Colin. Demonic Tutor's going to go to the graveyard. And we're going to put our deck back over. Okay. 4 mana. Mind Twist for 3. That's going to empty Colin's hand. That's what I went and got. So yeah, that was very, very good for the turn. I want to make sure there were no other threats available in his hand, any kind of way to deal with my board. So he draws for the turn, plays a Black Knight, which of course has pro-white, which means that it can successfully block that Savannah Lions all day long. He's going to animate a factory and swing in for 2, sending me on down to 13. So I untap, take my damage off of LionDibBolt and draw for the turn. Take a look at what mana we have available to us and play another Volcanic Island. So now we've got a flyer, so we're going to head on in for 3, which is going to put Colin at 12. So at this point, I'm winning the damage race, sort of, even though not technically. But we are able to get ahead here. I have 5 damage a turn on board versus the 4 that Colin is presenting. So he's going to activate here and force me to discard a card. I chuck a counter spell because at this point he has no hand and it's pretty much useless anyway. Colin comes on in for 2. I'll take the 2 and go on down to 10. Having a little trouble finding it, but we finally do. Colin's weighing any other options he might have. At the end of the turn, I disenchant the rack. So at this point, I'm just trying to eliminate any sources of damage. So I go down to 8. I play the Sonic Blast. I go down to 8 and then cut subsequently to 7. I put Colin at 8 and then I come on in for 5. So he's going to go down to 3. I'll play a Mistress Factory and then pass the turn back over to him. Colin untaps, takes his draw for the turn. And unless he can get a flyer or some kind of way to get rid of that Serendipity, he managed to draw a Hypnotic Spectre. How about that? Alright, so he's going to animate his Mistress Factory. And he's going to swing in for 4. Looks like I don't have a hand available to me. So I'm thinking it over. Am I going to put this Mistress Factory in front of one of those creatures? Nah, we're just going to go on down to 3. So the game's all tied up damage-wise. Colin passes the turn back. I go down to 2 off the Serendipity. So all I really need to do here is just animate that factory and attack with everything. And that's pretty much going to get it. So that's what we're going to do. We animate factory, come in with a team. That is 7 points of damage. Colin can only block up to 3. So he is going to wind up taking 4 either way. And that is game 1, everybody. So we're going to take a little bit of a break and shuffle up. Do some sideboarding, and then we'll join these players back in game 2. Alright, we're joining these players in game 2. We have sideboarded, shuffled up, and cut our decks, presented, and Colin is going to be on the play. So Colin is going to take a look at his 7, and which he has decided to keep. And he's going to open up on Urborg and then pass the turn back over to me. I'm going to draw for the turn. And so I've got a lot of options to me right now, if I remember this game correctly. But I decided to do the mean thing. And we're going to open up on Strip Mine, and we're going to take care of that Urborg. And I'm going to pass the turn back over to Colin, who's going to draw now. So Colin's going to play a Swamp. He's going to opt for a Dark Ritual, which is going to give him 3 black mana. He's going to use 2 of it for a Black Knight, and he's going to pass me back the turn. So I draw for the turn. Here comes a Plateau and a Mox Jet. So we got a little bit of fast mana available to us, but no major plays just yet. So we're going to send that back on over to Colin. He plays a Mistress Factory for the turn and comes in with a Black Knight, which promptly gets answered with a Lightning Bolt. Colin passes me back the turn. We untap and draw. So now comes a Tundra and a Mox Jet tapped for a Soul Ring. I'm going to pass the turn back on over to Colin. He's going to take a look at a new one. Plays another Swamp out. He's given a little bit of thought. He must have drawn something good. I didn't quite see it. So we found another Dark Ritual into a Hymn to Torak, which has been pretty good. He's drawn a lot of these tonight. Fortunately for me, that's not been terribly devastating. But now here he's going to get half of my hand, which does kind of suck. All right, so he's going to get a City of Brass and a Counterspell. And he's going to come in for 2, which gets disenchanted. All right, Colin passes me the turn back. I take my draw. And then give him control back. So here's 2 more mana for a Demonic Tutor. So that's pretty good. So he's going to go search for his favorite card. So we're going to give him a minute or so to take a look. It's got to be in there somewhere. Well, he's passed the turn, so he's already told me to go ahead. So we play out a Mox Pearl. And I believe I passed the turn back to Colin at this point. But he's still looking for his favorite card, which I think he has probably found at this point. So we're going to play out a Hypnotic Spectre. And he passes me the turn. I take a draw, land a Mistress Factory of my own. And I think at this point I had a Counterspell and a Disenchant in my hand, which is kind of miserable because I don't really have a lot of action there. Colin's still shuffling up. I think he was having some difficulty on the night, but it was still a fun game nonetheless. Alright, we finally got to cut our deck. So Colin draws for his turn. He has drawn another swamp, and then he comes on over for Hypnotic Spectre. So he gets the counterspell, which, I mean, that's fine. Then he plays the swamp. I go to 18, and he passes me the turn. I'll play a land. And I swing on in for 2, because why not? So now we're even at 18 all. I pass Colin the turn. He takes his draw. He's drawn a Mistress Factory. He swings in for 2, and he gets the last card in my hand, which is a Disenchant, which is kind of a bummer because that could have been used to take care of that other Mistress Factory that he drew. But that's fine. We're going to time walk here, everybody. Untap, take our next draw. And this is kind of tough because at this point, that Hypnotic Spectre, as long as I've only ever got one card in hand, is just going to keep getting that card every single turn. So he comes on over. I kill this thing. It's gone. Psionic Blast. Take 2 damage in the process, but that's alright. So 16-18 now. Colin up. And there is that Karma that we talked about. Now, that card is going to end this game fairly quickly because Colin has 6 swamps out, and this thing is going to deal him 1 damage every upkeep for every swamp he controls. So he's going to take 6 and go to 12 this upkeep. Unless he can find a way to get rid of this thing, it's this game is going to be over in short order. So Colin takes his draw for the turn, and he's giving it some thought. He's still staring at that card. It's probably not something that's going to take care of Karma, or he would have already played it. So he's going to animate his factory and come in for 2 and send me down to 14. I'm going to take my draw for the turn when he passes back. So we're going to hit him for 2. He's going to go to 10. Colin untaps. It looks like he drew a Paralyze there. But Colin sees the writing on the wall, everybody. He decides to pack it on in. So those singleton silver bullet strategies out of the sideboard, sometimes they do become relevant, as it did in this case. But this game was a lot of fun. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. I do appreciate it. Again, if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. It helps our visibility. If you enjoy old school content in general, please check out our buddy Joe over at the Orb MTG. He has tons and tons of videos up, and it's just a blast. Thanks again, everybody.